Okay, let's talk about copyright in the digital age. Now, I always break up the copyright kind of from the base idea of copyright that we learned in the first section of this little lesson. And then I always kind of come back to it after we talk about fair use because copyright in the digital age is so much more intense and so much easier to violate than it ever has been before because of the internet and digital and how easy it is for us to find exactly what we want and exactly how anything that we need on the internet itself. So let's start with the question, what's different? Like, why does the digital age impact copyright so much? We talked about the internet. The internet is there. I mean, before I had to try to draw pictures for a presentation or to make photocopies, now there's the internet and Google Images and Flickr and even like places like the Creative Commons and places like that. You could find images just at the drop of a hat. And I could find videos. And it's easy for me to upload videos or to anybody to upload a video and upload a picture, whether or not they own the copyrights to that stuff or not. So it's many different things that can kind of happen while we're looking at the copyright in the digital age, while we're kind of focusing on why digitally this is so much now easier and therefore it's much bigger of a deal. Because if it's super easy, people think that just because it's easy, then that means it's right. And in all actuality, that's very much not true. It is just as bad as it ever has been when it comes to violating copyright. Now, here's a couple of the easy ways. According to LegalZoom, right? Shout outs to them. In 2018, here are the three most easy ways to violate copyrights digitally. First one is software piracy, and this one happens a lot. You can copy an entire software algorithm and use it or sell it without paying royalties to the copyright holder. And this becomes even more so when we think of copyright, oftentimes we think of like stealing intellectual properties like movies and images and color schemes or whatever that we have, like making copies of stuff. But one of the big ones is this software piracy, is that they'll take a piece of a software, like the most important part, the algorithm that runs stuff, and they'll copy it and they'll sell it and they'll use it for their own gains. Then there's of course file sharing. This was another big one and still is. Like I still have students today who, they upload movies to the Google Drive and then that way they could share them with their friends and they can watch them whenever they want. File sharing occurs when an internet user uploads a digital copy of copyright work to a website and another user copies the uploaded copy and downloads it to his computer. Because the internet is so free and it's so vast, finding when people do this is very, very difficult. So again, if it's easy to do, it's easy to justify that it's okay. That's still just not necessarily true. Then there's also illegal uploading, right? Many users upload copyright materials to websites that do not facilitate file sharing, like YouTube. YouTube is not a file sharing website. YouTube is a video viewing website, but with as many videos as gets uploaded to YouTube constantly, there's such a hard way for them to figure out whether or not that material is actually used, or especially when we get into the fair use arguments, whether or not it's being used fairly or not. So we're going to talk more about this. So where did all this kind of come from, right? If you are, at least I'd say 30 years old or so, you probably know what Napster is. But this was kind of the start of the digital copyright. And I don't know if it's necessarily the start, but this is definitely where it got big and mainstream. It's a perfect example of how copyright works in the digital age and how copyright can be kind of pushed the boundaries and then walked back so that progression can actually be made. So digital file sharing in the 90s was this is what Napster's big thing was. In the 90s, the internet speeds got faster, so it made it easier and more connectivity the uh, across the whole country allowed for there to be more people on the internet. And so they created this idea of Napster as this music sharing site where it's a peer to peer file sharing, means that I have a file on my computer and that I can basically give it to you on your computer and we can share that file with each other. And Napster would create these little folders that anything that you would put in the folder, it would then open up to anybody else who had Napster to go look at that And if they wanted that particular song, then they would be able to download that particular song. So this is kind of what Napster looked like back in the day. And it brings back so many fond memories of staying up late so that we could try to download as many of our songs and our MP3s as we wanted. And it also started in a lot of ways as trying to find rare recordings of songs. But then, of course, it turned into not necessarily rare, but the big ones. And we can honestly see where this problem would be, right? We all know what the problem is from that. If I'm downloading songs for free from my friend, am I going to the store now and buying them? No, of course I'm not, because I already have it. Why would I go to the store and buy it? So this became a giant issue, and Napster got hit with three gigantic lawsuits: one from Metallica, one from Dr. Dre, and one from a bunch of record companies. So the RCA, all of these different guys sued Napster saying, "You are giving away our stuff for free. Stop it." And Napster's defense was oftentimes, "Oh, we're not giving it away. We're just sharing it with each other. So it's a peer to peer, it's a share network. Like, I assume that everybody has the rights for them to do this. I'm just giving them the option of sharing stuff that they have already purchased that they have the rights to with each other." And of course, that didn't fly. Way more money going into the Metallica Dre record companies than it was into the Napster idea. So this, Napster had to close down. They had to figure out to pull all their stuff off the internet, and a bunch of Napster clones popped up after that, as I'm sure that they would, but they all got fought back eventually as well. And so everything is good and fixed from that, right? Well, of course not. But it's not all bad that comes from it, because without Napster, the radio industry wouldn't have, or the music industry rather, wouldn't have the idea that people don't want to have to spend 15 bucks or 20 bucks to buy a whole albums, that if all they really wanted was one song. So from that idea of Napster came these different types of file sharings, these legal file sharings that they have now, like Spotify and Pandora. Spotify and Pandora make it legal because even though I can now listen to any song that I want to that's a part of Spotify, I still pay a monthly subscription. So I'm paying for the songs, sort of, and paying for them through a month. And if I don't want to pay and I want to do it for free, then they figured out a way for the artists to still get paid, and that's through ads. So if I watch ads, I can still listen to the music, and they then pay royalties to the record companies and or the artists that are on there, so that they get like a little percentage of every time their song gets played. They get a little bit of money, and that's how they get around this whole idea. That's why Spotify is legal and Napster is not. Right? Everybody kind of wins with Spotify, and pretty much just the users won with Napster and not the record companies. Right? They only have music that they have permission to have, though. So Spotify and Pandora, they won't have certain artists because those artists won't let them play on these apps. Makes perfect sense. Amazon's and iTunes was another way, is that you could pay per song instead of paying, $15 for the entire album. If I just want one song, I could pay $2 for it, $1.99 or 99 cents, whatever it was. They do the same thing. They pay royalties to record companies and their artists. They only have music they have permission to have. In this way, they can control the uploads. Amazon and iTunes has a much more rigorous, um, whether or not the person can upload their, because what they want to get away from is try to avoid, is somebody like me uploading a song that is actually a Beatles song, but I say it's from me, and then I make a bunch of money because it's really a Beatles song, but I'm selling it for cheaper than the actual Beatles song, right? So they are able to control the uploads better by offering through this.